Welcome. This is the Astrologic Lab class, Captain's Log, 9/15/2022, 10:12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I have my beautiful cohorts in the lab with me, Emily and Sierra, and we're gonna, fucking do this. So we're here for a mommy and me class. We're gonna get to that. What I want to talk about maybe first is just today's chart. Let's check in. And what I want to check in with is Uranus and Saturn. So Saturn is once again in a square with Uranus. Now, the Saturn square Uranus has been plaguing us for some time. This is the counterculture versus the dominant culture. This is the labor workforces against the capitalists. This is, the labor unions of the teachers striking, the healthcare workers in Minnesota striking, the fucking, El Salvador storming the castle and swimming in the pool. This is the queen dying. This is old patriarchal shit, coming to terms with the fact that this will not stand. We've got the North Node and South Node also forming that square. The North Node in cahoots with Uranus saying yes, right? This is the direction that we're going. This is how I know we win. Now, Vesta is shacking up with Saturn, and I really feel like this is saying, well, what is money, economy, structure, dominance, power structures, constructs, anything Saturn related, legacy? What is it good for? What is it actually supposed to be doing other than ruining our lives? Right? Other than making us feel like, well, if you're not robotic and you don't show up the same every year, not worth it. Vesta reminds us that the divine feminine is valid, right? When we've been groomed in our entire lives to dismiss not just our own feminine wisdom, but the feminine wisdom of the collective, in my opinion. The North Node being in Taurus, it's very Empress energy, right? She doesn't chase, she attracts. She doesn't want to fight for her rights. She wants someone to recognize and respect her dignity and sovereignty and autonomy. And so isn't it exhausting? We have to fight for something that is inherently ours, given at birth, right? Like water, like basic needs met, especially in a world where resources and values and things that people need have never been more available or movable from one place to another. There's still people really suffering. The South Node in Scorpio does not fuck around, or it's more like a fuck around and find out situation. Because if you haven't learned the lesson of the bougie, kind of power dynamics that come through with a dominant culture saying, I know best, you're my little child workforce. And the workforce is like, hey, I can't show up today. I'm not fucking good. My kid's sick. This happens, this happened, this happened. And I don't have money to make that go away because you don't pay me enough to have that, or whatever. You don't pay me enough to have a therapist. You don't have, I don't have these resources. There's the opposition to Ceres in Leo, which is, a pretty powerful mother archetype. Ceres in Aries, right? She's ready to burn the world down. That's opposite Elsa magic. She's ready to burn it all down if she doesn't get what she wants. And I think that that's where the earth is, by the way. She's ready. She's like, well, I don't have to sustain your life if you don't want to sustain mine. I don't have to support your children and your children's children 7 generations from now if you're not going to care for the land we stand on. We've got Mars trying to Saturn. So, the fucking political junket is a talking head that has its own, kind of agenda and is believing itself. And if you watch, which I don't, the spin. I can guarantee I know exactly what Tucker Carlson's fucking saying. Um, um, Pallas and Lilith are gonna be joining up soon in Cancer. That's gonna be a real feminine awakening. We've got a lot of the goddess asteroids tagging along. So one of the differences right now is that Uranus and Saturn are in retrograde both in this square. Earlier this year, that was not the case. They're both moving forward. So they had to rehash some shit. And of course, they want to do it during Mercury retrograde, right? Yeah, it's a vibe. So let's take Saturn out of this. Let's look at Lilith. So, you know, Lilith is like a major character as far as I'm concerned in terms of the fall of the patriarchy. She's radicalizing people in a way. Now, she's doing it through the mothering aspect. What is a mother? What is the womb? What is it? It's a portal to another fucking dimension, right? And anyone who says anything less has not been paying attention. And I'm sorry, I'm done calling it whatever. It's not a vessel. We're not a vessel. You know, yeah, Katie.
This is why my prenatal and postnatal or postpartum stuff is called portal yoga.
Yes.
It's portal because you are a portal. You create a water mammal and bring them into a land mammal situation. It's so cool.
It's so fucking cool.
Portal. You are a
portal. You're the portal. You are the portal. We're the portal. And yeah.
I just had an amazing epiphany. Think about mammals and like think about human evolution and how we came from these like amoebas and waters to land.
There was that portal.
Waters to land. Sorry.
So like no, so that's
oh my god.
That's the thing.
So cool. Sorry, I just need to jump in.
But so if the Earth is a womb, that tracks, right? And we've evolved from it's 100%. 100%. I feel like, you know, I've made the comment, I was like, you know, Lilith's ready to go back to Eden and be like, yeah, what the fuck? You kicked me out and now look where you are, you bastards. You know, I've brought my children with me, they're demons. Let's have some fun. But like, yeah, Uranus and Saturn aren't fucking around. These fixed signs are like rebuilding, and meanwhile Pluto's being destroying Saturn's deal, right? So there's, you know, Lilith's in trine to the south node, right, and to Neptune and to Juno in Pisces. It's a water trine. This water trine here is feminine. Yeah, the water bearers, the, you know, coming from the water, coming from that lucid dream space, that emotional body, the intuition, the things we cannot ignore but no one can see. And so it's really easy if you're in the physical realm to ignore it. And you know, it reminds me of like, you know, the old gods, the old goddesses. Venus is in Virgo, sextile to Lilith. So they're in cahoots. You know, Venus in Virgo is very, for however, it's very Queen of Swords energy, which I, you know, because she's, you know, there's this element of mercurial energy that Virgo has. I don't know if it's, I mean, I guess maybe more Queen of Pentacles, but she relies on the abundance. She knows the sustainability cannot hold. Like, she knows everything needs to evolve. So Venus just doesn't want to take any hits for what's not evolving. You know, she's like, I'm not willing. She's like, Lilith, are you seeing what's happening? Are we going to let this stand? You know, Lilith square to Chiron. You know, the battling of the ego. What does it take for somebody to say, I belong here and you don't? What kind of audacity does that fucking take? You know, or I get the resources and you don't. I know what's best and you don't. You know, might makes right. So we're at a real, you know, it's almost like a standstill. It's very uncomfortable, I think. But now they pissed off the train union, so I have some faith. You know, these train motherfuckers, they're not fucking around. So let's go. You know, and the teachers and the healthcare workers are not far behind, right? So, you know, yeah, I heard from a friend. I have a friend who's in Armenia right now, and another war has broke out on those borders. We've still got everything in Ukraine. We've got, you know, all the things that are happening around in the Middle East, that, you know, the Palestine situation. You know, there's so many people who have limited mobility based on other people's designs for their future, their resources, whatever. So many people who are not living sovereign lives. For us, it's subtle, right? We're only restricted by the amount of money that we have. So, anybody else want to look at something else before we
I
move
didn't,
to, yeah,
I didn't actually know what you guys are looking at. Sorry. I
this
know
is today's chart. This is
this is
just
today's
today's
chart.
chart. Yeah,
So one of the things that like popped into my head, I've been listening to oh, what's his name? You know Stephen Fry?
I know
He's
that
British,
name.
he's the British dude. He's a British actor. You know,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
he
He does
also
a
he did,
show, and he's a really good. He like
yeah.
it's
So he did, it was like Fry and Laurie.
yeah.
So the guy who played House and him,
Mhm.
it had like a comedy duo thing for a long time. But he also is the person who read all the Harry Potter books. Issues with Harry Potter now, but
Yeah,
whatever. But like his voice, he's amazing.
yeah.
He is also just like this crazy scholar dude, and I've been listening to his myth book. So he has one called Greek Myths, he has one called Troy, and he has one called Heroes. So it's going through all that stuff. So I like, and you're talking about Lilith and going back to the garden and stuff, like what came up for me was I've been thinking about Persephone a lot, and like there's a retelling of Persephone where like she didn't accidentally eat 5 pieces of pomegranate. She was like, F that, I'm not going back. And like she chose to become queen of the underworld. And she's like, fine, I'll visit my mom, but I'm gonna have boundaries.
Yeah, because yeah, the other story is that Ceres was kind of like a codependent mother and was
Well,
like, I need you to live out my destiny that I couldn't live. And so Persephone had this animosity towards her in some regard, and she wanted to have her own
like,
shit.
and complete control over her,
Yeah,
right? And
totally.
she's just like, nah, I'm gonna take my future into my own hands, and I'm gonna be the queen of the damned, right? Like she chose
Yeah,
to be queen of the underworld. And I know it's not damned in Greek,
yeah, yeah.
whatever. But like, so I like, it's very Lilith to me. Lilith was like, well, fuck you. Like, um,
Yeah, you
and
want to call
like,
me,
you're
you want to
thinking
call
about, and
me.
like with what's going on with Pluto, also underworld, right?
Mhm.
I don't know. There's just a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry, my screen you all just disappeared.
Yeah, well, and Pluto, you know, Lilith is going to be opposing Pluto in not too long.
And so it just makes me, I don't know, like that's what was coming up. And when you're talking
Quincunx
about
to
like,
Ceres right now.
when you're talking about like the burning it down, like it's saying it's almost like taking control in our, like to write our own story instead of working within the bounds that have been laid before us. We're going to say, actually, no, I'm going to create my own boundaries. And I don't know, that's kind of what's the vibe is given me,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think of Mars and Gemini as, I mean, it's midpoint right now. There's a sense that, yeah, like you know, the dictation of destiny that's been written, the story, the narrative has been like the pen's been written out of the dominant culture's hand. The internet has provided us with an open season. You know, if you don't want to believe somebody, you can go and ask somebody a direct question from where they are, right? And get that, um get the beat on that, right? And like I said, I have friends in India, I have friends in Armenia right now. He came from Istanbul. He was in um uh uh Lebanon before that, all just completely dysregulated economies run by mafias. Their money system's fucked. They've got tons of, and these are small countries who've been just pawns in the larger game of capitalism. And I hadn't ever thought of that before knowing these people. And it's completely shifted some of the ways that I even know, what I don't know, right?
Right. Well, I mean, the same thing has happened in Central America too. They think about
Yes.
Venezuela and like how
Yeah,
much
Venezuela.
people,
That's right. It's Venezuela where they're just like, yeah, you want to make us do organic farming? Cool. We don't have any resources for that.
well, and I'm just thinking like, so what happened in the, I think it was the 80s, like the US government went in and like supported the overthrow, but like
Mhm.
it was like the the people we backed were not the people we should have been
Right.
backed.
Like the
And they,
supplantation of dictators that we've done in order to hold steady.
right? And then
Yep.
the how that's impacted like the local farmers and the like the there's so many like free trade laws that have completely screwed the local economies, and that these corporate like these US corporations can sue the country
Yeah, for
for,
not producing what they need.
or no, not, it's not about not producing, it's like for lost funds, or like for like, yeah, for lost funds, because they bought this thing and they were going to be able to make this much, but now you're trying to put environmental controls on me,
Yeah.
and
Right.
now I'm going to sue you because for lost profit. And so then they're able to sue there's just so much going on with that, so I could get up
Yes.
to
Yeah,
talk.
no. Well, these are all these things where it's like, the capitalist urge to secure assets that are based on then, people producing at a certain rate, and late stage capitalism just literally failing. And I don't, yeah, I mean, it's all wrapped up. It's so muddy. Emily said Mars is going to conjunct my natal Jupiter and Lilith before the end of the year. Sounds fun. Like Mars is the war chief, to a large extent. I kind of think of him in that way. On his bright days, he's the best cheerleader ever. He's like um those SNL cheerleaders, though, a little intense. Um right? Like so but with so much, the moon's in Gemini today. The moon is going to enter Gemini, I think. Yeah, in just a couple of hours. The energy is going to get real intense. The conversations are going to get really heated, right? And as the moon conjuncts Mars over the next day or so, you fucking beware, because people are going to start flitting about. I imagine Fox News is going to be an inferno. Um, and we are going to, especially with retrograde, Mercury retrograde, just finally moved to the 7 degree, right? It hung at 8 degrees for a while. It's finally moving backward. And that kind of confusion that's possible, right? Square to Palace. What's your plan? What's the end game here? At a deep level, because Palace in Cancer is like, where is room for everyone else? Everybody's like, let's make a bunker. Let's go off planet. Cool. Did you recognize that the people who are administrating all of your capitalist ventures, you don't pay enough to even fucking care? Or, I heard there was like this thing. I was like, yeah, that the world's ending because the rich people are having conversations with engineers like, how do I make the best bunker? And I've hired 12 mercenaries to protect it. Right? I don't know if you've heard that, but I heard that.
I have not. Sorry, I'm jumping in
No,
again.
please.
I'm
This
chatty
is
to.
about jumping in. Jump in.
Okay, so I did see a thing yesterday where the owning family of Patagonia gave away their shares in the company, and all of their all of the profits that they would have received, it's like 10 million a year or something, is going to a nonprofit to help the 100% help combat climate change. So they're like, and he's like, I hope that this is an example, like as a billionaire, I hope this is
Look
an
how
example
fucking easy
other
it
people,
was.
like I hope this is an example to other people who have money, and like that we can do something, like we can impact
Yeah,
real
you
change
literally have
for
the
our
assets.
goal.
You want to, yeah. Do you want to fucking do it? Like, where are you going? You're gonna go alone? Cool. Sounds great.
Like, and well, and then you know, who are you gonna bring with you?
Yeah.
Because you're gonna get
Who's gonna
inbred
serve
and
your food,
die.
motherfuckers? Like,
Well,
you know,
you're
you
gonna
like
become
those
inbred and
tacos?
die
Guess
real
who
quick.
makes those tacos? Fuck you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, their private chef makes their tacos. Come on.
Right. Yeah. Well, their private chef was raised by a working class mother.
Who probably worked 3 or 4 jobs. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know. Anyway, it was my
Uh,
birthday yesterday.
what's that?
It was my birthday yesterday. It was
Oh, fucking happy birthday. Shit. You know, you would think in an astrological thing I'd be like really on people's
all over
birthdays.
that.
I'm not.
That's
I'm not on people's birthdays.
all right.
Yeah, happy
It was
birthday.
interesting. I thought I was having a heart attack all day.
Oh no.
I don't
Well,
know what
yeah,
was
the
going on.
energy is pretty intense. What, literally, or is it just like a anxiety situation?
Like, I think I just slept funny and like
Yeah.
pulled a muscle in my chest,
Oh
but it hurt
no.
all day. And it just kept getting worse and worse. And then I was just like, oh my God, what are the symptoms of a woman having a heart attack?
You're just like Googling and it's like you're gonna die.
I know. It's like, oh, pain in your chest, pain in your neck and shoulders, pain. And I'm just like, and I'm nauseous and I'm tired and
Yeah.
fatigued. And I was like, oh, but I'm also a mother of a 10-month-old.
Yeah, and not sleeping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a
Yeah.
very interesting day.
I threw my back out right like a week before my birthday. I slipped my back out sitting in meditation. I was sitting in easy pose
Yeah.
and I shifted just a little bit and it went kunk. And it was like days. And I was like, what the fuck? Thanks, body. Like, really? So yeah, like I always think of this, like, I'm like, okay, root chakra, whatever. Like I have like I'm always like my body's trying to tell me things. And so yeah, happy birthday. I mean, times as they are,
Yeah.
being above ground is a win, I think.
Being above ground right now is a blessing and a curse.
It's a blessing and a curse. Well, we're working towards, as you can see, we're working towards Mercury is going to be in opposition to Jupiter in a couple of days. Probably like 4 days, I think. Mercury opposite Jupiter. What do you guys think? Mind, gifts, but both retrograding. Square to Palace. To me, like this is we have to get our shit straight around what do we actually want and what do we actually, this is not getting the truth, right? Like exponential growth. What's the cost of exponential growth?
But doesn't physics or like science teach us that things can't grow exponentially?
There's always a retraction. Everything everywhere all at once. Anyone?
I still haven't seen it, but it's my heart movie, I think.
Listen, yeah, no, it's a must see. It's a must experience. But it talks about time in a way that it expands until it collapses.
If I can, it feels like with Jupiter in Aries and then Mercury over there, it's like I feel like a lot of the personal conversations I'm having is this reckoning of like, oh shit, maybe my voice did matter. Maybe I should say something. Maybe this thing I've been sitting on for years, for months, for like however long is actually super needed. And the fact that I'm not seeing it anywhere is my responsibility. And so, like, coming up with the plan, finding the value and the sacrifice of what you are going to like give and shift to be able to make that happen. Like, it's I don't know. There's maybe my bubble is really tiny, but it feels like a vulnerable conversation. There is heat there, and there is this element of trade almost. I don't know, hopefully good things. It's hard watching all of them retrograde, and I'm like, it's good. It's a good time. Like we're
Slow
having,
down.
yeah.
That reminds me
So
of that lyric in the Wish You Were Here song. You know, did they get you to trade your walk-on part in a war for a lead role in a cage?
Oh. Okay.
Do you want to listen to that song and cry right now, you guys? Because
No.
yeah, no, but
Okay, so I just had a thought about retrograding things because like we know that like those planets are not actually going backwards. It's
Right.
all about perspective.
100%.
And like what can we gain from the perspective of watching like what perspective do we gain when we go through this again, like when we visually are physically, you know, we're like, okay, so what's going on here, what are we revisiting, and
Yeah,
like,
the
looking at it
concept
like,
of
right,
revisitation,
because we're not actually
remembering.
yeah, we're not, it's not actually going backwards,
Right.
right? So like how are we going forwards with this opportunity to um take a second, like to take a beat almost, and what else do we need to gain almost? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, if we look at Mercury in Libra itself, and that being the kind of like straw that breaks the camel's back in regards to retrogrades, right? Because a lot of the outer planets have been in retrograde for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And we get Mercury added to it, and the mental space slows down.
Mm-hmm.
The mental space begins to retrospect, to retrograde. Yeah, it brings an acute awareness, I think, to the the contemplative practice of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you know, Palace still is like pushing, you know, in this regard to, you know, and she's going to be, you know, becoming in an exact square soon. When Mercury finally conjuncts the sun mid retrograde cycle in a couple weeks, or in a couple weeks, there's going to be a consequence to some degree in our energy grid, I think, to what we are outputting and inputting and all of that, because again, we can't exponentially grow without consequence. So it's going to continue to show up with deficit, whether it's deficit of the workforce, people who are willing to commit to showing up. I mean, I just started a part-time job, and I'm thinking about it's 2 5-hour shifts. And for the next few weeks, I'm going to also work a third 5-hour shift. And I can't fathom how I'm going to fucking show up for that every single day. Like, it's not even every single day. Right?
Uh-huh.
Every single day, and it's selling dildos. So I don't know what yeah, I got a part-time job at a sex shop. Anyway, so yes. So spreading joy. I'm going to talk every couple into pegging is my goal. Anyway, so okay. Side note. Just sorry, I'm not going to edit this out. Sorry, YouTube. I don't know. It's going to get taken down. So I think that like when Mars is in Gemini, though, that voice gets really loud. So Mars in Gemini, right? Gemini, let's look at, you know, Mercury's rulers. Let's look at what's in those. I wonder what the quietly quitting stuff has to do with all. Yeah. So there's a subreddit. Are you talking about the subreddit, Sierra? Yeah. Quietly quitting. They changed it. What's it called
bare
now?
minimum. I
Bare
don't know.
minimum.
I'm not hip, but I've just seen enough to be like, yes,
So
sign me up for whatever that is. I'll read Lily. I'll read it later.
Yes, my friend Lindsay's super into this subreddit, and she explained it all to me. That's the only reason I know. My co-host for the website or the podcast, she's like, yeah. So she's like, oh, quietly quit. It's like you do this, the idea that you do what you're paid for and nothing more, and that's plenty, right? And I've never taken a job that way. I've always been like, how can I be a yes person? How can I be, you know, go above and beyond, this value added employee situation.
Because that's how we were taught, that we were the only way that we would get a job, especially as women in our
Or get
generation,
ahead.
was don't rock the boat and be more, do more than you are expected to. Otherwise, somebody else is going to. And that's what they taught us as little girls.
Well, no more.
Something cool with Lilith and Cancer, and I just like to think about periods all the time, so maybe this is just me. But I'm seeing more and more companies that are like willing to give women menstrual leave, and like that is now something that we can kind of like argue for. Maybe that's with the quiet quitting of like, I literally have no hormones today. I will do the bare minimum. Like, do not expect me to show up and lead a meeting. Do not expect me to like plan anything during this time. I
Yeah,
don't
like
know.
I'm
Maybe I need to have
bleeding.
more conversations. Yeah, not
Like
participating. I'm doing enough.
Towards the end of my corporate career, I never let anyone, if they were taxing me or had any expectation that I was going to be extra that day, I was like, oh yeah, I'm bleeding today, so I'm just going to do the things that I know need to get done, and then I'm going to go. And if they didn't want to have a conversation about that, because they never fucking did, because I'm like, I always posited it with, I'm bleeding. And the moment you start bleeding, you let me know how you fucking feel about showing up. I'm bleeding. Oh yeah, well, I'm bleeding. And I would say it several times a day. I was like, it's my job to normalize it. These are the things, like when you say, like, maybe I should have said something. I'm not going to quietly fucking bleed anymore.
Sierra.
I'm a portal for these people that came to this world. I'm bleeding for it every month. Yeah, you haven't had to, I don't know nothing about it. Cool. That's nice for you, isn't it? I'm going to add that to my Zoom title from now.
Well, it's like, it
Yeah,
could
okay, I'm
literally
bleeding,
be a
just so you
benefit.
know.
It could seriously be a benefit. Like, I know a ton of people, including like women who struggle with their periods, don't talk about it like this, but being in that place of like, I'm done,
Yeah.
we get to see how things are so inefficient. Like, we get to see how things are so aggravating for everyone across the board, but we're all so quiet and we're all not going to rock the boat and we're all just going to keep doing the thing. Like, no, today I snap. Today
No,
there's not
today
enough
is
energy
done.
for niceness.
Mhm.
It
If you
could
want me to
help.
edit your paper and redline the shit out of it, give it to me. That's what I'm up for today. You
Bring me
want a
snacks
critique
in
of
your
that
paper.
process that you had? Yeah, let me rant. I'm good for that today. You want me to play nice? It's probably not going to happen.
Well, what I found interesting, so the last job that I had that was like I have to show up at an office and do work. When I applied for it, I thought it was like 3/4 time work and not full time.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the way they sold it to me is that they're like, okay, well, since you only really wanted 3/4 time, we'll have you do this part and then we're going to offer the other quarter to someone else. And that person said no. So I got it. But then I did everything in 3/4 time, but I didn't get paid full time.
You did
And
full-time work in 3/4 time because you're smart and fucking
right,
efficient.
and I didn't get paid for it. And then like they'd be like, well, Katie, what are you doing? And I was like, well, I finished my work for the day, like I'm gonna take off. And they're like, oh, but no, you're supposed to be here until then. I'm like, yes, but all of my work is done. Like this is the like because I'm really good at my job, I can get it done quicker than normal people.
Mm-hmm.
And I can be done with work today.
Yeah.
Like this is where like pay me for the job.
Yeah.
And if it takes me extra time, like
yeah, if that's what it's worth, if that's what that amount of work is worth to your company, pay me. I will become more and more efficient to economize my time because that begets me a better life. And you can still fucking pay me.
Right?
100%.
It like just blew my mind. And
Yeah.
and it still does
I'm not selling my time, I'm selling my expertise.
Right. And that we pay hourly for jobs that have an expertise. And so like I understand like when you are in retail and you
if you have to be a body in a shop,
there has to be a body in the shop, and that like your expertise is being a body in a shop right now.
Right.
Okay. So like you have to be there and that's part of the job. But there are so many jobs that are not about answering a phone or doing whatever. Like so pay me for the
they're not
job
about availability,
and not
it's about
for my
productive
time.
labor. Yeah.
Pay me for the job and not for my time.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Well, no, it's not just your opinion. And there's a long history of that dueling battle force. Because honestly, even on a production floor, if the goal is to make X amount and the people that are working that job work so well together, they get it done in half the day, go the fuck home. and they made that product, right?
Mhm.
That's why when capitalists own the means of labor and the structure, and there's no, this is where capitalism and socialism, right? So if you own the means of labor, which is what, lots of countries don't do now. This is what you were talking about, the problem with, they don't own their means of labor. So if they produce the same amount, but what the expectation was that you're gonna fill your time, you're gonna maximize the profit, because we have shareholders and there's corporate structures that require you to do absolutely everything that you can and make more and more. But the reality is that if you own the means of labor, then you get to decide, we've done our work today. Let's go fucking have a beer.
Mhm.
Let's go fucking be with our families. Let's go have a life as well. This is called efficiency. Otherwise, there's no incentive to actually give a shit.
Right? And then people like, and then these
And then it's like,
people
oh, why not?
wonder why people like, there's like, nah, not my job.
Because people checked
Right.
out. So, and
Because
then
they
you've
go
got
into-
people who are inspectors who are literally, screwing the pooch on the clock to give, stealing time and money from those production people who, are producing the thing. And so there becomes this division of labor that becomes problematic
Mhm.
power-wise.
Yeah, and then people end up doing jobs for other people that are still employed, and yeah,
Yes. And then, yeah, it trickles down, right?
yeah,
Right? Because
yeah.
if
And
you're,
pretty soon
if you're a
you're
partner,
doing someone else's job and your own job, and you're only getting paid for yours, and they're making just as much money as you are, and they're effing off.
yeah. Well, and then that trickles down too, to a family unit, to a community. If you have to travel to go to work, you work all those hours and you finally get home and you've required your partner to stay home to manage the house, or to, even if they're both work, it's just like it's just everything. And then the community has no time to organize even a small smidgen of what it feels like to be part of something. Now you're not part of something at work. Now you're not part of something in your community. Now you're Netflix and chilling and becoming a consumer. It's the capitalist dream of labor being a captive audience, right?
Over it.
Over it. Mars and Gemini telling the truth about burnout, hustle, coach culture. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Like there's that, I think it's, what's that woman? Bertha. She's a fucking badass. He's like, what's your dream job? And she's like, baby, I do not dream of labor. Like, like, yeah. Uranus square Saturn, and this is of movement. This is a repetitive thing. We're supposed to talk about mommy.
What?
I know this is supposed to be a mommy and me astrology.
That's okay. The current energy is plenty
It's
to talk
dominant,
about.
right?
I think
It's
this
dominant.
feels more poignant.
We're
for
still
all
not
of
being
us,
paid for our reproductive labor.
right?
Being a portal is a job. I
I
was
don't
just
think
talking to
I
my
can
friend
handle
Lindsay.
that conversation today.
I know. So here's something, and then we can just we can work this in a little bit. So economies that have been successful have been built on free labor. Facts. American economy built on the enslavement of people. Facts.
Mhm.
When the cotton gins were bought in the South, the collateral that was used were people because they were owned by those farmers. Facts. When the enslavement of those people became illegal and they fought the war against it, right? Emancipation, all that shit, they didn't want it because they would literally lose their estate because they had bought their equipment, their houses, they were running it on a negative, that the people that were an asset, they would literally lose. It was like literally losing assets. It's like giving away, $1 billion, right? And so same, when the American economy lost mostly women, but home domestic care laborers that were giving that labor for free.
Mhm.
Catherine Zeta-Jones, when she was in her 20s, married Michael Douglas. In the prenup, she was paid $2.5 million a year or something like that to be his spouse and have his children. She maintained a salary while they were married, raised his children, their children. She knew what kind of life she wanted to live. She knew it would derail her career. She had no like, there's that. Happily paid
So
by
I
Michael.
lived that experience. I called off a wedding when I was 28, right during my Saturn return, and I had a prenuptial agreement, and it was $250,000 per child. And I lived that whole experience, and it is freaking weird.
But here's the thing: is that if you had that, are you saying that that is a weird thing to do as a partner?
To me, it was weird to put a value on human life.
Yeah.
And then, if that human life was, trans, non-binary, gay, whatever, then they would be excluded completely from the family.
Oh, that was also in there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's fucked up. To me,
I did not marry that person.
Right. Well, so to me, the labor that is provided for free from a spouse, especially a woman who is the portal, right? You can't separate, you can say, yeah, we're domestic partners. We delegate, and if it really truly is an equal partnership, that looks very different than most normal families, right. I would say, still, even with all that we've done.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about, because my friend Lindsay just told me that this morning, and I was like, wow. So here's what she knew. She knew that it would benefit him more than her, because she wanted to stay home with the kids. Mm-hmm. She wanted to do those things. That was part of her. So they had that discussion. She's like, and my career will not be the same robust way that yours will, by nature, by design.
Yeah, same. We had my current husband and I had that same conversation.
Yeah, I will devote time and energy to our children that you will not, even if it's just the year, right, and beyond that, I'm intensely pregnant and keeping our children alive with my, body. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to me to consider all of the unpaid labor that's gone into the mm-hmm. economy and still act as though it's nothing.
Well, and it's perpetuating treating women as property, and
a vessel, not a portal.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We aren't actually human people. We're just property for somebody to tell us what to do. And that would be a man.
Yeah.
And here, I'm going to put it in writing for you.
Yeah.
So that you remember your place.
Yeah. By the way, the government has designs about how you would, like if you don't have a prenup at all, even if then the government decides how things are, it's very interesting. Like almost everyone should have one, and I don't have one, but it's like, there's things about everyone having one, just because it literally protects you. Because once you bring the government into your relationships, it's a whole nother situation. But
yeah, but I threatened my husband with like living with me forever. Like if we get in fights, I'm like, hey, just so you know, you can't ever get divorced. So think about your next words carefully.
Right. Exactly.
And that's just how we ended up doing it. But I don't have a prenup either.
Right.
But I think my experience previous was like, I'm not doing that. Either you pick to be with me forever, or there's the door.
Yeah. You mentioned, Emily, in the chat, the US still owns women.
Yes.
Not just with Roe v. Wade overturned, but with the lack of maternity care. Yes.
Lack of postpartum care.
Holding them hostage. There's a kind of prison that happens when you don't have access to the highest form of medical care, or access
or the difference in care and risk for women of color.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't get the same care. And that's bullshit. And that's just another way that the US continues to own people.
Yeah. Well, and even if at the very basic level, when an IUD is put in, or when you get a colposcopy and they clip it out of you and they're like, oh, it'll be a little painful, and there's no pain meds administered.
That's some bullshit too.
It's like acting as though when they castrate pigs, it's fine. I can't feel your pain. I'm sure it doesn't exist.
Right. Especially because I'm a man with my hands in your
Yeah,
hoo-ha, right?
you matter that little to me. I don't
Right.
believe you. You're making it up. You're overreacting. This
Mhm.
narrative, by the way, that Mars and Gemini is a narrative. So what is that dominant narrative saying? You're overreacting. You don't know enough to have your opinion. You should question yourself.
It's gaslighting.
You're emotional.
It is gaslighting.
It's 100% gaslighting. 100%. Your
Well,
experience isn't real because it's not productive.
right.
I'm so over the, well, you're not being logical because you have emotions.
Because
Because
they've
men
done
are so good at being logical with emotions.
right. I'm sure, yeah, because your anger hasn't gotten out of hand at all.
Ever.
You've marketed anger out of the emotional realm of being like even an emotion. It's just a warranted response to your ego being harmed.
Yeah.
Chiron in retrograde in Aries
Mhm.
is this egoic wound, right? We look at the patterns of Chiron returns 50 years ago, civil rights. 50 years before that, it's like 69, 1820s, right before suffrage. The male ego and women saying like, hey, me fucking too, bro. I literally have raised the world. I've brought it into existence through the portal.
That is my body.
That is my body. I've laid my body on the line. Many of us have died. There's more bleeding women in this world than there ever have been. Many women did not live to be bleeding crones.
That's why I think we should organize every single woman in the entire world to go bleed in public.
I want to bleed in public. I would
Oh,
bleed
fuck
in
yeah.
public. Yeah, I know a lot of women are like, what?
Like you wear like white pants or what? What does this mean? I don't
No
know.
pants.
Sitting on the Capitol steps.
Just bleed on them.
Just bleeding on it. I would do that.
They'd be stained forever.
Bring us cake.
I'm trying to figure out how I could be comfortable doing that because I wouldn't be comfortable just not wearing pants.
You need like a skirt and a little
skirt.
stool.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
yoni steam situation, except different, right? So like you have a skirt.
Yeah,
maybe
just lift it.
Yeah. Okay. I could handle it. I'm like, if there was a skirt or a dress,
Sure.
I could handle it.
Even yeah,
But
like
I couldn't just go up and like,
and you're not alone. Like
sure, but I want to invite everyone who wants to be naked. Go for it.
Right.
and that's just not what I could do.
Yeah. Right. Well, I probably wouldn't do it either, but if everyone else wants to do it, then great. Do your thing, right? Yeah.
But I think it could also be really powerful to just have everyone wear white, like white shorts, white pants, whatever, and we're gonna go bleed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then who all's bleeding at the same time? There's a lot to. How do we?
You know what? I think if we it's possible for us to get in sync to some degree, which would be fucking amazing in and of itself. But I know for myself that circles bleed together. When are all of us bleeding age still? Are we all still bleeding?
Yeah.
I just finished my cycle today.
Same. So I'm a full moon bleed.
Yeah, I bleed every 26 days ish, but same. I had an early period last time, so I could fortuitously start bleeding on the full moon this time. That's what happened. I wasn't supposed to start bleeding until Tuesday of this week, but I started last Friday.
Yeah,
because my period before was a little earlier than it should have been. Same. In order for me to bleed on the full moon. Yeah, it happens, and then it'll switch the other way, and I'll bleed on another new moon. So I go back and I bled on the new moon in Pisces. So I've been working 6 months toward bleeding on the full moon in Pisces.
It's cool to see where that falls in your house too, by the way.
9th house.
Or by cool, I mean kind of
10th house. Yeah, 10th house.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, for highlighting that, because that is important, and I hadn't thought about that actually.
I'm pulling my stuff together. I know we haven't talked about some other things for a hot minute, but
yeah, Yeah.
Jennifer and I
Yeah.
talked about it on Friday.
Yes. About how it's not moving right
Yeah.
now. But yeah.
Yeah, so I'm bleeding somewhere between the 18th and the 24th of every month. It just changes. Because of, I don't know, because I've never had a consistent period.
Mhm.
33 days, 28 days, 28 days, 27 days, 29 days.
That's fairly regular, to be
Yeah.
fair.
This is the
that
most
I am-
regular it's ever been.
Okay. Yeah. Like for me to have it, usually for a long time, it was 26 days. I could literally look at a, calendar wall and be like 1, 2, 3, 4, back 2 days. 1,
Yep.
2, 3, 4, back 2 days. Always.
But I have one a year that is late by like 2 weeks.
Yeah, like my year before that, before I got pregnant, 24 days, 28 days, 27 days. And then I was pregnant for a little while. And then 31 days, 26 days, 28 days.
Mhm.
And then I was pregnant for a long while.
Yeah. And now you're hovering more around a regulated,
Which
no,
I never
they
have
say
before.
the optimal fertility cycle based on hormone cycling is 29 days, 28 to 29 days, because each phase of that cycle, each quarter of that cycle, the luteal, the follicular, takes a certain amount of time to be optimal, right? But again, like I bled 26 days pretty regularly, had no issue becoming pregnant or taking my, having spontaneous births. So it's really interesting though that I know there's women in the medical field who are probably doggedly figuring all this shit out, but prior to however long ago, 20, 30 years, there was very little voices or of women in that space. So we're still in that. We're still in this like hearsay, everyone, so I think it's really interesting, but I would love to, I'll wear white until my pants are red. And, I would do that too. Especially if it felt like everybody had decided that that would be more comfortable for everyone and winter is coming. But like, I think people need to visibly see what we do and we need to stop acting like it doesn't happen. And it's interesting because they've built in the stigma of like, you are unable to do so. It's like, no, I can listen. I've lived my whole life showing up anyways. Not no one knowing. And at some
Right.
point I stopped doing it.
Or all of the things that go through your head when you start bleeding, and I should go for a walk, or I should do some exercise, or I should, all of those things that you were taught and were ingrained when we were kids, going through like sex ed and stuff like that, and learning about our bleeding cycles. And every time that happens to me, I'm like, nope, I don't know. That is not what I need to do. I need to do exactly what my body's telling me to do, which is to sit down.
Yeah. I'm like, where's the red tents at this point? Because that
was going to be my next question. Have you read The Red Tent?
Yeah. Where's the red tents? The other book that I really recommend is called Wild Power. Has anyone else read that? It's written by two women from the UK, Sanjay. Let's see. One of my favorite. Yeah. So The Red Tent, incidentally, is a book that I always buy over and over again at like half price books. And then when someone mentions that they haven't read it, I give it to them. So I have a copy if someone needs it. It's fucking amazing. Where's
Writing it down.
I bought that book a billion times. Here it is. This book. Wild Power. So this is about discover the magic of your menstrual cycle and awaken your feminine path to power. It talks about the two vias, right? And it's basically a waxing waning phase. Like, where are you at? The inner summer, the inner winter, the inner spring, the inner fall, and syncing yourself up with that. She also, let's see. Yeah, this is the first sentence. Let's start with a wild idea. As a woman, you are coded for power, and the journey to realizing the fullness and beauty of that power lies in the rhythm and change of your menstrual cycle. And so they solidify that we're encoded with a spiritual practice of cyclical wisdom. It's aligned with lunar energy, it's aligned with feminine power, and it's a teaching and a gift to human consciousness that we actually live that loudly, that menstruating bodies are seen, heard, validated, and valued in a way that is, because maybe, this every day getting up this solar way, because a masculine cycle, energy cycle, is 24 hours, right? The sun comes up every 20, it's very, well, the moon gets full every 29 days. So what does that flow look like? And what does it take to engage in a flow that is different in that regard?
So hold on. So I just want to throw something out, and I write parts of songs many, many times. And like I started writing a song about the moon like 12 years ago. And there's a line from Romeo and Juliet that's swear not by the moon, the inconstant moon. Right? Like it's so inconstant. But that's the thing. The moon is so consistent.
So consistent.
It just looks different. And
She
again,
got rebranded. She got rebranded as chaotic because people who aren't paying attention.
Right? So like there is a consistency to the moon, and it has such a powerful impact on our planet. Yeah. Again, like with tides and things like that, right? Like there is such a pull. And when we think about our body being portals, like and this is men's bodies too, like the amount of blood, or the amount of salt in our blood is the same percentage as the amount of salt in the ocean. Like there's some cool shit that's going on. Anyway.
Yeah.
Like it's consistent.
Well, and so in the menstrual cycle, in the fertility cycle of women, menstruating bodies, there's a height at ovulation of energy, right? When you're ovulating, you have all the spoons. You can get the kids dressed, you can do the dinner, you can do the grocery shopping, you can remember that, and when you're at day 26 or 27, those last 5 days before you bleed, you got spoons for you, and that's it. And there's no space in productive society really for women to take that time. And I would say that that's a model for human bio, like the rhythm at which we could, because it's not saying like women are the only ones who need this. By the way, men are exhausted too. They've talked themselves out of their feminine wisdom too. If we led that rhythm and said, hey, but by the way, you don't need a woman's body and a menstruating body to remind you the moon is there. The moon is a mirror of that cyclical wisdom that's encoded in women's bodies, so that we can say, let me give you testament. Let me testify on that. I know that very fucking well. And because we've written women's opinions out of the narrative, because of this emotional, hysterical, like narrative of what women actually are, it's been completely fucked. Right.
Like the word lunatic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hysteria also comes from the root word for like hysterectomy, right? Everything that you've got in there. Mm-hmm.
Well, and how did they used to treat hysteria in the early 1900s?
Giving them orgasms.
Little clit stimulation.
That leads to this book, you guys.
Okay.
It's called Pussy.
Oh.
Okay, a reclamation. Let's just read Regina Thoroughauer. Okay. Whoa. Where to pull?
Incidentally, it's 11/11.
11/11. So she talks about our pussy being this force in nature, and there's these mythologies of the goddess who actually, Ceres, when she was sad and she was in the cave and she was mourning Persephone's loss, she was like, I've turned it into winter. What brought her out was another goddess coming to town and flashing her pussy, right? There's this, she did a body dance, right? With BAWDY, which is a striptease, right? And she showed her, like, remembering, like, there was a shining light that came from between her legs. And there was this remembering that portal, like that vessel, the portal that comes through our legs and the pussy, like all of the pleasure that's focused in that place as well, right? And so she says in this book, she's like, you need to romance yourself. You have an inner goddess that requires attention and devotion. And by honoring your cycle and saying, I am, powerful in my own feminine wisdom, and that I don't need the authority or certification or the resume to say that I have wisdom. Living as a woman in this world is its own resume. We have receipts, right? So she's like, you have to reclaim that power in order to do that. And what that looks like is dating yourself, making a whole this is why, sacred self-care and like baths are part of this lunation practice and witchcraft. It's like, don't forget to romance yourself, show yourself in your body that you love yourself, the glamour magic, get your hair did, do what makes you feel good, because pleasure can be a priority. And when you show that to the world, they don't just think working like a dog is the value. Oh, I'm so busy. I work so hard. That hustle culture bullshit that everybody is so fucking proud of. But yeah, did you sit and like have a nice conversation with some tea today? Like, did you actually get to sit and enjoy something without feeling guilty on the back end, or feel like you missed out, or you have to catch up now? Look at this duck feather mama.
Talking about getting your hair did.
Get your hair did. You got the swoop. That's some good
amazing.
duck feathers.
It's amazing.
She is so dang
This is
cute.
why when I got pregnant with Evelyn and I found out she was a girl, I felt a deep sadness, because I was like, fuck, I felt personally responsible that I didn't build the world that I would want her to live in.
Right.
And I'm scrambling at this point. Now, it's not to say that our boys are not involved in that, right? Because they are, right? The space, the container of which, this whole masculine feminine thing where men are the protector and women are there's something to that too. But, because when women are bleeding, they're vulnerable. When women are pregnant, they're vulnerable. This is why there's this natural biological imperative to seek protection. So what does that look like when there's lots of bleeding women that are willing to protect the women who need the protection? If they've activated their masculine, because we've become non-binary. And this is why I believe in queer culture 100%. Anyone who is relying on one side of that binary, bye. You aren't relevant anymore. We can do both. Anyways. So tell everyone when you're bleeding. Sierra, what do you want to say?
Before I forget, because it keeps slipping away because my brain isn't totally here yet. I heard something really cool about how the way that we're living right now without women in the schedules, without women being considered with their cycles in the day-to-day activities and the corporate planning and everything, like, it's inefficient because it's not sustainable long term.
Right.
Like, we cannot look at anything on just like an 8-hour a day basis and expect it to survive any particular amount of time. And
No.
it tied in really cool with I've been listening to like this herbalism series, and there was so much dialogue in the first one about how no one has heard about these herbs anymore in America because we cannot monetize them, because we can't like keep growing them throughout the seasons. Like they give and they take and they wax and they wane, and they're not marketable, they're not monetized. It was really cool. And so to see more and more people talking about bringing it all together, it's really awesome to see. I don't think there's enough of it, but
Yeah,
to see that come up right now and then see that reflected in the chart too, it's
I
just
love
awesome.
that.
I'm just glad to be having the conversation.
Yeah. As an herbalist, I notice what is growing, right? The day that the Roe v. Wade was overturned, all my tansy was blossoming. And I had been, battling the tansy. Tansy is an abortive herb. And I notice, and I'm like, oh, where's the chamomile growing wild? Where's, because it's a nervine, it's calming. Where's the, and the fact that, yeah, like something that has to be wild crafted, by the way, like a woman's wisdom. Like, by the way, I'm not the same fucking. There's a song by the Supreme Beings of Leisure, which is the best band name ever, but it's called Never the Same. It's like, I'm never the same girl twice, right? And if you expect me to show up like that, I'm not the woman yesterday. If I did something wrong, if I did something naive, if I did something right, I'm showing up today as the woman who did that thing and have different energy today. You don't get to decide who I am by that. And that's the same as like anything in nature, right? And that wild power that is uncaged. And that, I think Glennon Doyle, that book Untamed, I never read it, but it went through a wildfire on Twitter and everybody, and I heard some stories. She had a conversation with Brené Brown that I listened to. And if you have time for that, that's a beautiful fucking conversation. But that untamed aspect of life is the same as this wildcrafting. Like, well, we can't monetize something that can't be relied upon to be the same every day. And isn't that fucking beautiful? Because maybe it's not supposed to be monetized, right? And we've missed the mark. Money was supposed to be a tool, and now it's tooling us. I mean, we don't even touch money, right? I could literally go throughout my day and, not touch a single dollar, and yet it rules my life. So yeah, that's beautiful. Do you have that? If you have, yeah, it's literally not real, it's absurd. Yeah, whenever I say, the other thing I like to say is like, I'm bleeding, money's an imaginary, it's like there's these things that's like, it disrupts the dominant. This is Uranus and Taurus. How many ways can we disrupt the conversation and bring it back to a point? When you have somebody coming at you or saying something, it's like, oh, well, we are living in a late stage capitalist hellscape, so makes sense. It's not you, it's capitalism. It's not Mercury retrograde, it's late stage capitalism. It's not, it's not what we think it is. It's actually just this. Yeah. So I need that sweatshirt. Yeah, me and Marilyn are working on some stuff. We're gonna have some stuff.
Every retrograde, I want to wear that everywhere. I think it would be
yeah,
great.
I have a design. Do you guys want to see the one? Let's see. I'll show you, because I really love it. It's my favorite. We're not gonna do it first. We're gonna do a fuck around and find out shirt first, but I'm gonna pause the recording. Someone help me remember time. So let's look at the next couple days. Okay, let's see if this is how this is gonna play out. So here's today. We've got Thursday the 15th. Here's tomorrow.
Share your screen, love.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Mhm.
Yep. So the moon's going to move even closer to Mars, right? Sometime during tomorrow, Mars and the moon will be conjunct. That narrative, that dominant narrative, let's look at so the relationship trine to Saturn, right? Square to Venus, forgetting the values, right? Quincunx to the South Node, forgot where we came from. I feel like the next couple of days we're feeling that already, maybe, and that's that, ooh, but Forgetting where we came from. Do you forget who your mother was? And the mother we share, the larger mother that we share, you know, is in such pain too, right? So where can we agree on a reality? Because I don't know about you, but every single person that I meet is a constellation of experience and reality that I do not share. Even if we align on certain things, I do not share your experiential wisdom. When do we get to start believing that experiential wisdom and come with curiosity? You know, Mars in Gemini can inspire us to get curious and have curious conversations. I think about the work of Byron Katie. When somebody tells me something that I do not believe, I've trained myself. This took time. This took probably 4 or 5 years. I say, wow, is that true? And then I stop talking. And that is the hardest thing that my Gemini rising has fucking learned to do ever. I'm not always good at it. If I'm drunk, it's game off. Right? Because the follow-up of is that true is I don't believe that to be true. I've never even experienced that, which can be actually pretty intense for somebody to hear. Like, wow, the other things say, wow, you know, oh, you know, those Asian drivers, or you know how women are, or you know how blah, blah, blah. Oh, I haven't experienced that. Tell me more. You hurt me. I have. Interesting. Wow. Tell me more. Tell me more about that. So the Mars and Gemini, that curious, can you ask a question that's like, oh, you're accusing me of something. Oh, I need to do something for you. Tell me more. Is that true? I haven't experienced that. Right? Not negating necessarily. This is the training of, this is Byron Katie's work. It's like, I know I'm not going to argue my reality with you. That's fucking, I lose. It's not a war that I can wage. But can we have a discussion, because we clearly are not living in the same reality. Let's just assume that we don't. We can't ever. Right? But if you want to actually have a conversation that's real and true and honest. And again, that South Node in, you know, Scorpio is like, I know the deep, dark fucking secret that no one wants to say. You're terrified. You're gonna die. No matter what your carb load is, it doesn't fucking matter. Right? There's certain amounts of things that we're not willing to say to each other. You know, every time I go to see my parents right now, I'm like, what's your plan if somebody falls? They live out in the middle of nowhere, away from any emergency care. I was like, do you have a tarp you can put dad on so that you can drag him out? You can barely walk. What's your plan? And my mom gets this look on her face. I'm very fucking morbid, right? I'm at a point where it's just like, you guys moved out here. But I almost every time I'm like, what's your plan? And they don't have one. They're just going to fuck around and find out. It's fine. You better be really, really aware that that's what you're doing. It's fine. Introducing chaos. Some of these, you know, things can be fixed by money. If my parents had money, it would be fine, but they don't. So anyways, that's a tangent. I think it's interesting in this chart, you know, look how directly flanked, you know, this is the Mars square Venus day tomorrow, Friday. Mars square Venus in these mutable signs. This is my sun and rising. It's really interesting. And the moon's going to be on Mars. Juno's in the mutable water sign of Pisces, squaring off. She's like, oh, but I want to be in alignment with my partner. I want to be a good partner. Sacrifice. I don't need my needs today. So abandoning ourselves tomorrow, over the weekend, that could get exhausting. So I think that's something to watch. Here's Saturday. The moon's moving away. Square to the sun. This is the last quarter moon. So this is the time to banish that shit. It's in Gemini, banishing thoughts that don't help us, thoughts that honestly, if we're arguing for our own reality, we're also in disillusionment, right? If we think we're right all the time, here's another saying that I love that I've had to adopt as a Virgo. I'm willing to be wrong about that. So as soon as I say, this is my opinion, oh, I haven't experienced, I'm like, is that true? They tell me. Oh, I've experienced this. I tell them. Oh, they want to argue with me. I say, well, I'm willing to be wrong about that. End of discussion. I can see that that's true for you. Not for me, right? And how can I sit in peace with that? It's hard. So yeah, that's this trine here. This trine here, Vesta wants us to remember our sacred duty. What is the thing that you can only do? You can only be yourself. You can't save anyone else. And Saturn says this legacy but we're like, what's the language going forward? We're teaching our children to advocate for themselves, not accept abuse, not be quiet about things that are abusive. I think that we're doing that collectively now because we're listening to them. When they say, hey, I was hurt, you say, oh, who hurt you?
This
To make them
exact thing happened to
apologize to
Tori
the
yesterday.
adult. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When adults used to hurt children and then they felt bad about it, kids were made to apologize to those adults for making them feel bad for hurting them, right? Oh, go and sit on their lap. They didn't mean it. I don't give a fuck what Uncle Joe meant. All that stuff. So that's come up a lot with my daughter. And she gives zero fucks and I'm super happy about it. So we'll see. Saturday, Sunday, the moon finally moves into Cancer, conjunct Pallas. This will be the day to start planning in a little more accurate of a way. Maybe there's still a lot of energy that can't be controlled. We're going to get a trine from Pluto to the sun soon, right? So Monday, Pluto trine Pluto retrograde, sun trine Pluto retrograde. And so that trine only happens twice a year. Okay, it happened during Taurus season, trine to Pluto, right? Pluto being in Capricorn. So Virgo wants to see the patterns. The sun in Virgo is pattern recognition to a large extent. What's the cycle pattern? So again, when we talk about the moon and that cyclical wisdom, what keeps returning, right? There's a pattern. It might be an irregular pattern, but it's a pattern nonetheless. So cycles of abuse, cycles of news cycles, how often do they scare tactic us enough to feel dysregulated? And it's also the nervous system dysregulation. So yeah. And again, how many structures are we building to support ourselves through that? I think, the fact that the pandemic closed down smaller businesses, yoga studios, places of peace, for people who were non-denominational, and yet the religious could keep their churches open, which is fine. We all did what we did for a reason, right? But it's really interesting, the sanctuary places that remained open and running, tax exempt, supported, and the places that got shut down that are no longer available to people. All right. So it's going to be a weekend. This Uranus square is going to become more tight. Right? It's going to stay. Look, 1819, 1819. Here's the new moon happening. It's going to happen on that day, Sunday, the 25th. The new moon day, this Uranus square is still happening. Opposite Jupiter. The new moon is like at probably 1 to 2 degrees Libra. So really early on. which means that the new moon in Scorpio will also be an early degree new moon. So these new anaretic degrees coming towards the end of the year. And then the sun gets to conjunct the south node for the first time in Scorpio in 18 years. Right? Because the nodes moved into Scorpio at the beginning of the year. So, what is that? 11:11. Ooh. That's fun. 11:9. Party in Pisces, Jupiter and Neptune, those philanderers. The opposing, the opposite, we got the North Node in Uranus still cahootsing. The sun conjunct Mercury and Venus, South Node to some degree. You know, trine or a square to Saturn, square to Uranus. Yeah, witches season is going to be pretty fun. We're going as dark goddesses for Halloween. We need to put out the memo. I was thinking Medusa myself.
I feel like Medusa has a bad rap, by the way.
She totally does. She
None
totally
of it
does.
was her fault.
Yeah, no. And you know what's interesting is the connection between Pallas and her, right? Pallas was Medusa's cohort in one way or another, was her protector. She turned her into this monster in order to protect herself from the men who had defiled her, right? Gave her this gaze. So yeah, I also have this feeling that like I want to dress like Medusa and then play the song Daffodil by Florence and the Machine over and over as I walk everywhere. Like we need loudspeakers everywhere. Can we like, it's like a big dorm room where you just blast the same song on repeat. So we can
I'm obsessed with that song right now.
I'm obsessed with that song. The gate of it. I'm gonna go see Florence and the Machine, by the way, on the like 6th of October.
Very cool.
I can't wait.
That's awesome.
But yeah, this
Bluetooth
I was
speaker. That'll work. I'm lightweight. It can be charged.
Put it in the headdress.
yeah, a little Bluetooth.
You got this.
I just want it to be wow. Yeah. Fuck. Yeah, the beginning of November is gonna be intense as well. Like we're not gonna get rid of this scorpionic energy. I think the South Node in Scorpio is a lot more important than I formally realized. So the 5th of November. Remember the 5th of November. That was the day they burned the parliament down, right? Or is it?
I know of no reason the gunfire treason should ever be.
Yeah, Guy Fawkes.
Yep.
The first time I ever heard about that was 1998. I was in Scotland and I was on a tiny island on the west coast of Scotland called Airaid. About 12 people live on this island with some chickens and cows and a candle making shop. And we were having a bonfire for Guy Fawkes Day. And it was a full moon and I was standing at the top of a mountain with these sheep and I bounded down the mountain and I fell into a bog. And it was cool because like the sheep were like looking at the moon, and then the clouds would go over it, and the sheep would look at each other, and then the moon would come back out, and the sheep would look at the moon. And I'm just like giggling and feeling alive and feeling free and young. I was 19. And I go skipping, like bounding, like, you know how you kind of gallop down a hill and you're just moving. And all of a sudden I am up to my armpits in the earth. And I swiveled my legs around this inside of this hole, you know, kind of like you would do like with a hula hoop motion. And there were no sides to this hole. And I immediately, like, the adrenaline hit me and I leapt out of the hole somehow. And I was shaking, right? And I go back to where everybody was, and they're just like, they're watching Dirty Dancing in German with subtitles, like, Bebe. Like, you know, it was just like a whole thing. And they're drinking whiskey and chilling out. And it's like a super chill vibe. And I'm just like buzzing. And they look at me and they're like, what happened? I was like, I fell into the earth. And and they were like, I described what I had. And they were like, that's a bog. You could have disappeared forever and no one would have known. Right. And so, yeah, that happened. So, so that's what I think about November 5th always. But that's the day that the sun will conjunct the south node, conjunct Mercury, and flanking Mercury and Venus, all in Scorpio. Those millennials who have Pluto in Scorpio, y'all, you know, so call your millennial friend or join a millennial support group. But that's in opposition to Uranus and the North Node, of course. Jupiter conjunct Neptune. This is massive. It's like the, you know, they've brought the ring to Mordor. Now Sam's like, I'm, you know, Samwise is tired. Like, right. So fuck. But look at Lilith and Pallas. Lilith and Pallas is like, Pallas to me is like, hey, and I'm interested to know how they cycle together, how often strategic creativity meets up with the chaos of feminine wisdom, right? That wild power that is inherent in feminine wisdom. So in Cancer, trine, right? It's that trine. There's a massive trine going on here, right? Venus, Jupiter's finally back in Pisces.
It will be interesting to see how this translates to the election.
Yeah. I mean, I'm ready to sweep the men out. I'm not a by the way, there's no word for the opposite of misogyny.
Seriously, that's weird.
No, it's not.
Well, okay, no, it's not. You're right.
But yeah, I want to know if there's a culture in the world that has one, but yeah.
I feel like the Amazons might have.
Yeah, maybe. I was thinking that too, Katie. That's where my mind went.
Yeah.
Huh.
So if
stuff?
yeah,
They were
looking at
pretty-
the Latin versions of it, right?
Yeah.
Misandry, the hatred of men, misandry. Andro, meaning male or masculine. Misogyny. So misandry. Rise of misandry. The first thing that comes up, misandry. Feminists pretend to hate men and it's not funny. No one's laughing.
For you.
Usually when you hate something, you don't find it funny.
Right. No. What's the opposite? Yeah, misandry. I'm a misandrist. I'm not a, yeah, that's interesting. The hatred of men. So misandry has not been born into the subconscious. It's actually very conscious, right? Which is why people hate feminists so much. All right. Last words, last thoughts.
Last thoughts would be just watch.
Yeah.
Just watch. You know, while we're all feeling adrift in this water trine right now, just watch, observe, remember. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. Just watch.
Just do your hair. Get my snake headdress made.
I want to see like pictures of that. 'Cause that sounds really cool if that's okay.
What?
Pictures of that when that's all done. If you
Oh,
got
yeah.
'em, if that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You never might have something to say. She's saying,
gotta head out.
I want to learn how to type, Mom. is what
Yeah.
she-
She's like, I want to type.
Got it.
Where's a good site or for me to look at today's chart and then my natal chart? Because I have astro charts, but I've never been able to figure out how to do
Yeah. The Sinistry.
today
So
with.
my favorite thing is actually an app. It's called it's called Astro Future. I think that's the best visual representation in an app that I've seen. Sierra popped out. Did she say bye?
Yeah, she said bye.
Okay, I didn't see it. Okay. Yeah, so it looks like this. I don't know if you, so like the inner and the outer, it's just very visual. I think there's a link in the Mighty Network, but
Okay, I'll look for it.
but yeah, Astro Future.
Astro Future. All right.
Yep, I'll send you a link.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, you got it.
I love you guys.
Love you guys too.
Yeah,
Nice.
we need to get together. Like,
In person?
yeah.
Yeah. You were talking about doing a new moon movement thing?
Yeah, so I have a new space for moon circles. I'm going to start in October. The 25th will be the first one. It's a Tuesday night. I'm starting them again. They're in Gig Harbor.
Yep.
At a space called Touch of Meraki, owned by my friend Brooke, who's amazing. And Katie, honestly, there's a bunch of people who do rotating stuff there, but it's a great space. It's fucking beautiful. And yeah, I can't wait to do it. I need to get her some information actually. So that's on my docket for tomorrow.
If you want me to do movement stuff or yoga, whatever, do you want me to do it in October or at a later date?
Well, that's up to you. I can throw you the dates and you can tell me if you want to, because what I'm thinking is that we would do the yoga before the circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it would be a set aside from, so then some people could opt in to do the yoga portion and some would not, probably.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then, yeah, then we can share something like, because it's like 5 hours. Yeah, anyway, I'll talk to you about that because I think time-wise it would be behoove, and then you can be paid for your services and all of that, not separately, but somewhat separately. Yeah. Emily, you're gonna come to Moon Circle?
Yeah, I'm desperate to do it.
Yep, it's needed.
Yeah,
I haven't done it since the end of last year, and but by the way, I'm not excluding men from it.
Good.
I'm not going to exclude anyone from it.
Good.
So I know that won't sit well with some women that have been in circle before.
Oh, okay.
And some going forward, but I'm pretty resolute that I'm not interested in excluding men from this conversation anymore, and they need to hear the voices of women in safe spaces.
Yeah.
So
yes,
that's what I'm hoping, and that's the seed I'm planting for that. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it brings a tear to my eye.
Yeah.
I'm still super Pisces emotional from the full moon. So
I know that was
yeah.
That moon